Today we are joined by an actor who has appeared in countless video games, such as Fenris in Dragon Age 2, Henry Blackburn in Battlefield 3, and Balthier in Final Fantasy XII. He has also been seen in movies like Train, Primeval, and Takers. You can currently see him starring as Deucalion on Teen Wolf, and Richard Pine in the Stephen King short Survivor Type, making its way through the indie film circuit. Sit back for a truly fascinating interview as we go in the workshop with Gideon Emery.
Hey guys, this is Jeff from Koobismo.com. Welcome to another installment of Koobismo's In the Workshop. Today, Phil and I are joined by one of the most fascinating actors in Los Angeles, the man many of you know as Fenris, Gideon Emery. Gideon, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here. Except I'm not really here. I'm there.
You're everywhere at the moment. What the internet does.
We're in the internets. It's incredible.
Hey, you've been one of the most requested interviews from our group. A lot of people are fans of your work, obviously on camera and off camera, and we'll get into a couple character-specific roles, industry-related roles. But when we were looking at your background and reading up your bio and seeing where you came up from, it's pretty fascinating. You know, you're born in England, moved to South Africa as a kid. How did you get into acting?
I always say it's because I was an only child. I mean, I still am an only child. I was kind of keeping myself amused as a kid, you know. I started off imitating voices from, like, one of my first imitations was Max from Heart to Heart, that old 80s show, and most people probably listen to this and like, I don't know that show.
I'm with you.
But yeah, there was this,
I don't know that show.
He had this kind of, he's like, by the way, my name's Max. I take care of him, because when they met, it was moida, or something like that, you know, but I was like this 12-year-old kid who had a voice like this, you know, but I could do this voice, you know.
That must have freaked people out.
So I had this ventriloquist puppet, which I persuaded my grandparents to buy me once on a trip to them. And not that they had a ventriloquist puppet store, but we were out and about somewhere, and there were these ventriloquist dummies. I was like, they're so cool, because I hadn't learned the word awesome yet. And I persuaded them to buy me one of these dummies, and it was great because you could operate the mouth, and you could put your hand in the back and through the puppet sleeve, and you had this little creature. And I gave it that deep voice, and it was that was good fun. So yeah, I did like voices, and I used to imitate. Gee, this makes me feel so old. I already feel old, but this makes me feel older than I am. There was Casey Kasem used to do this. Was it American Top 40?
Yeah.
And when I was in South Africa, we would hear this. I think it was on like Saturdays or something. They'd play it, and I remember us sitting down and listening to that on the radio. And it was like, American Top 40, Top 40. Hi, I'm Casey Kasem, and in today's Top 40, we have a long distance request for, Susie, whoever her name is. She's giving a shout out to Jeff, who's working all the way over in wherever he is, and and she'd dedicate a song and this sort of stuff. And so I would like do his voice, and then there was like USA for Africa, and I remember specifically like this specific like episode or broadcast or whatever, and there was that sort of intro strains that it was like, buy an extra copy and give it to a friend. It was like a fundraising thing. So then I would do like all the parts in the song and that kind of stuff. So it was kind of a natural progression that I would do something like that. Also, because I had no aptitude for science or anything that required half a brain. So I did some some school plays and like in high school. Did some comedies, and then there was like a musical number. There was this Gilbert and Sullivan musical, HMS Pinafore, and I was this like character dude, Dick Deadeye, and it was way too much fun. So I applied to drama school and fine art actually at university, and I got into both and opted for drama, and Went to drama school for 4 years, and that's how it started off. Yeah.
Well, you touched on it, and it's something a lot of people probably don't know is you have a strong background in stand-up and sketch comedy. Was that something you wanted to do for a living when you first started off, or was that just a natural progression for you?
I mean, for me, I was kind of the class clown, you know, at school, and I always liked doing funny voices and impersonations and stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I think it was. There were sort of active friends of mine who introduced me to it, and there were a couple of stand-up venues, and I thought, you know what, I'll write some stuff, and I think one of the things that started it off, it's got nothing to do with comedy, but maybe it was my sort of dealing with it. I went through this breakup, and it was like my first love, and I was like desperately in love with this woman, and then she broke up with me, and I went through this sort of dark phase that you do after your first real love, and I remember just going to this bar. It makes me sound like I was drinking as a teenager, but I wasn't. I was like I don't know. I was like 21, I suppose, at the time. It was like the end of drama school, perhaps. And I hadn't really thought about stand-up before, but I started writing this show, which was more, it was like dark comedy, and it was like one-man show, essentially. I called it Thin Man Talking, and I did it at the what's called the Grahamstown Festival. What was at the time, now it's the... What is it called? I don't know. It's our sort of international theater, or our local, sorry, not international, it's our local theater festival, like an annual thing in South Africa, like the big national theater festival, if you will. And they have, people coming from overseas and stuff. And and I just hired a venue, and I did this, I don't know, 60, 70-minute set kind of thing, and it wasn't strict stand-up because I sort of interspersed some singing and monologue-y kind of stuff and sort of playing on words. But I really enjoyed that, and subsequent to that, I did a couple of more traditional type stand-up things, and then I got involved in a sketch comedy show, which was kind of like an SNL, but on a minuscule budget. And I think we thought we were really talented, but in comparison, it sort of pales in comparison. But it was a lot of fun, and doing those sort of things, and I think drama school and doing that just gave me a vehicle to explore lots of different characters. And I think I know there was a point where I actively stopped pursuing comedic stuff because that's all I could get in to audition for. And people wouldn't take me kind of seriously, for dramatic roles, and we're talking more theater at this stage. But I couldn't get in to audition for these sort of meaty things I wanted to do. And so I remember saying to my agent at the time, I was like, let's just not do comedy for a while, and see if we can kind of change people's perception, kind of thing. And then I sort of drifted out of it, and I haven't done it since, to be honest.
Okay.
Your Casey Kasem impression was kind of amazing just now, just to dial back for a sec.
I honestly haven't probably done that in 20 years, so
oh man, it was great.
That's what I remember in my head. Yeah,
that's how I remember him. Do you do a lot of impressions?
I don't anymore. I used to, and then if I think of impressions now, somebody was asking me literally this last week for the first time in years, like if I do any impressions, and most of them that come to mind are so old. It's like John Major, the ex-British Prime Minister, and these sort of people, or like I used to do. I did a like a stand-up set in a talent show, like a TV talent show. Man, when I was in, I don't know, second or third year at drama school, and somehow, I don't know why I chose to do that. In retrospect, I would have no, I'm not going to do that, but I did it. And I did like a bunch of impressions and some South African impressions and a couple of international ones or whatever. And then I came second. I remember it was like between me and this other dude, and I was bummed because I thought, no, my set was way better. And he actually happened to do a couple of impressions in his set, but I didn't think they were like up to snuff. But anyways, I mean, the thing is, he won, and he legitimately won the thingy. But but I remember being quite proud because I won a TV and a VCR. And of course, 80% of people listening are probably going like, VCR. I remember seeing that in a museum. Of course, people don't go to museums anymore, do they? They're just on the internet like now, and
I think Google has scanned all museums,
and you'll see what I want. It was like a little, I don't know, like a 15-inch TV or something.
Did it have a remote control though?
Did it have a remote? I think it did have a remote control, as I recall. Yeah, it wasn't that archaic, but I was quite proud of that because that was my first TV and VCR, and I had that for several years. Isn't that exciting?
It's awesome.
Hey man, I remember when VCRs came out. So,
dude, I had a pager, man. When I was still at drama school, in my last year of drama school, I started doing voiceover. I was very fortunate to get my agent at the end of my sort of third year, and I started doing VO. And because my fourth year was like my thesis year, I had quite a bit of time off, so I was able to do VO during the day here and there. And I had this little pager, and I thought I was a freaking rock star. I had this little freaking thing clipped onto my belt, and I was wearing my black jeans, my black T-shirt tucked in, and high-waisted belted jeans, and I thought I was the coolest thing. And the thing would go, and then I'd have to find a phone somewhere, and then call the number and get my message. It's kind of not as cool. Thinking about it, but at the time, man, I was cool.
You were a rock star then. well, and talking about a lot of the work, mentioning transitioning out of comedy to get more serious roles and just a lot of work. One thing I found fascinating on your bio is it says, the voice of South Africa. You mentioned thousands of radio and TV commercials. How did you get, for a lot of our group that are voice actors and a lot of our listeners and followers, a lot of voice actors, writers, how did you get to that point?
Yeah, I was very, very fortunate. I think what I had in that market in South Africa was a more British accented read, and because of where my voice sits, it lent itself to these sort of smooth, classy kind of taglines and that kind of thing. And then I also did a whole ton of really hard sell things. I'm going to turn down my preamp here kind of thing, but it would be like, like there was one particular product. I remember it was like, Mr. Muscle loves the jobs you hate. It was like this really hard sell retail commercial stuff. So no, I was very, very fortunate, and I kind of got a head start because I started in my last year of drama school, and I was just very, very lucky. But of course, there was no. I'm saying of course, but there was no gaming VO there at the time, and no animation really to speak of. I remember doing like there was a kind of a stop animation puppet show, puppet series, TV series, which I voiced like a bunch of characters for, which was lots of fun. So I guess that was my first sort of foray into borderline animation, if you will, and then coming here, it takes, you sort of start all over again kind of thing. And then I found myself, being kind of filtered into the gaming side of things. And I think that's because I did like a bunch of voices, and my demo had a bunch of different accents on it and character voices. And so that was like a good fit for my agent to kind of, pitch me for these kinds of things. And then I sort of stumbled into it, and I, this is not the question you asked, but I've sort of segued on into other things. But yeah, I was just very fortunate. I think I just had a very specifically different voice, kind of, for the market. So it stood out, and it kind of cut through the clutter, and I was very lucky.
Well, and that's why I think one of the things you're known for, especially in the gaming world, we'll touch on that a little later, but is your voice is unique, and so it does stand out. So does that lend it to getting specific gigs just because of your voice being unique?
I think it's interesting because I don't always get to use my own voice, if you will. But like sort of my two biggest standout roles have pretty much, used my own voice, or I've been lucky to use it. So, or my own accent rather. So, yeah, I guess that's helped. I mean, the first big thing I booked was Final Fantasy XII, Balthier. And Jack Fletcher, who cast and voice directed that, I credit him with, really sort of getting the ball rolling for me in that industry and in that market,
Very cool. Well, Ed, I'm going to backtrack a little bit just because you touched on something and I find it fascinating. You have some time spent in the theater.
Yeah.
Now, was your theater work at the time, was it mostly starting off as comedy? You obviously, saying All Right Little Forest. Have you been involved in musicals as well? What was your focus on your theater upcoming?
I mean, I don't suppose there was necessarily a focus as much as, I sort of, you get auditions and you go to auditions kind of thing. I think there's that sort of perception that as an actor, this is what I want to do, and you sort of, I think maybe I'm just a sellout kind of thing, I get an audition, I go to the audition, I'm not at that, or at least wasn't really at that stage where, I could sort of pick and choose kind of thing. But I was also happy to do everything, to be quite honest. I never really wanted to pigeonhole myself as one particular thing, maybe because, I kind of get bored easily, and not that I would doing, just comedy or just drama kind of thing, but I like doing different stuff. That's part of the appeal of acting as a career for me, is I get to place, different characters and work with different people, and it's different stories all the time. So, I did some musical stuff. I can sing, but I'm not a Broadway caliber, singer by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's fun, and I did a couple of shows where it was, it was sort of peppered with music, and in my two one-man shows, I kind of threw some songs in there as well, because I do kind of enjoy it. But I always kind of wanted to do a variety of stuff, and so in terms of theater, it was also nice to do a few projects where I got to play multiple roles, and in a way that kind of lent itself. It was sort of good preparation for games where you have to do multiple characters a fair amount of the time. So that's fun. I just want to play, So if there's something new or different, I'll jump on board. Yeah.
Very cool. So obviously your career started off in South Africa. What year did you move to LA?
End of 2003.
End of 2003. Yeah. Since you were an established actor, were you able to start working right away?
No. The short answer is no, and the long answer is also no. No.
So what steps did you have to take to get back into working full time? Was it just a lot of auditions, or?
I'm just sort of taking a moment to working full time. I suppose right now I could say I'm working full time, but yeah, that's a very rare, unless you're on a series, behind the mic or on camera kind of thing. I don't know who, when you can actually say you're working full time, that feels like a lofty goal, No, I got here. I knew one person, I had one good friend, yeah, it was sort of a case of trying to get referred to people, and she referred me to her VO agent at the time, and getting a demo together and that kind of stuff. And it took a long time. It took a long time, to be quite honest. I mean, in terms of on camera, it's, trying to get meetings, with people. Some people are lucky where, they're coming off some series in their respective country, or they have, a name where, that product has been seen in the States, or they're the fresh new thing from fill in the blank, and that certainly wasn't the case with me. So, we're just sort of trying to meet people and stuff. It took a long time. I got an on-camera agent. I mean, I put together little packages for people, and and I had a lot of press back in South Africa, and theater reviews, which were rave, if you will, and I'd highlight the best sections and I'd send it out to people. And I remember I even had a postcard, self-addressed stamped postcard, which I put in with this little pack with my headshot resume and reviews and stuff, and they could tick a box, and the box was the options were thanks but no thanks, please send me your reel, get a decent haircut, fool. And I was like, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, and look, all they need to do is just tick a box and stick it in the out tray, know. And I sent off a bunch of these things to mid-level agents, and we're talking theatrical agents here. And I got one postcard back, and it said full client list scrawled on the thing. I thought, well, at least they sent it back. So then, it was, months go by and you're meeting. So anyway, it took a long time. This is a very long answer to what was a short answer. No, it didn't happen quickly.
So do you still find yourself auditioning a lot?
Yeah, I mean, I audition a bunch for sure. Here and there, I get offered something. More in VO than on camera, but for the most time I'm reading. I'm in my right now speaking to you in my little booth at home, and I every day I read on a ton of things, and I send them off. It's I mean that's the daily job is auditioning for stuff.
And we've heard from a lot of working actors that even in the industry today, the odds are you do 40 auditions, you get one, you're doing pretty good in the industry. Sure. Do you see that kind of response, or obviously with the on camera and the voiceover, have you seen one a little easier to get into from your side of the career?
I mean, I got into the VO side of things quicker than I did the on-camera side of things here. I managed to get a VO agent faster than I did a theatrical agent. But the trick with this town, at least LA, is that everything is about access. And representation is key in terms of getting that access. So who you're with determines what rooms you can get into. And getting with people who can get you into rooms, can be as easy as you meeting somebody and going oh, hey, I should introduce you to, and taking your materials to somebody who gets excited about you and then is still able to do that. Or, you may submit to a bunch of people, all those people can refer you to people, and people pass. I had a bunch of great meetings with some great agents, and never heard another word from them, but that's how it is for everybody, or for the vast majority. So I'm no exception to the rule, except that I've managed to make some progress along the way, and but it is a marathon more than it is a sprint, this thing, and when you move to probably the most competitive center for this industry, you can't expect things to happen overnight unless you happen to be 20 and drop dead gorgeous, and on top of that you have some skills. Right. Then you might get people super excited about you. Was that an answer?
No, it was great.
That was a great answer.
So I guess if we want to start to pull into the voice acting side. You mentioned Final Fantasy XII. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in video games?
Yeah, I started auditioning for them, and I found myself reading on more, video game auditions than commercial type stuff, and yeah, I think the first thing I did was EverQuest 2, and that was largely, I think they were all British accented characters. I did a bunch of roles on that, I think, and yeah, I think like I was saying before, I think Final Fantasy XII Balthier was a gift of a role, because first off I got to use. Not that I don't mind doing accents, I'm quite happy doing it, and more often than not I'm working in an American accent, but I got to use my own voice, which was nice, and the character was, this Han Solo, James Bond, smooth, kind of a little bit cocky, self-assured, charming guy, and a lot of fun to play, and plus, it was a large role, so I got to work a bunch. So I got to learn a bunch on the job, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and I think that helped open doors to to other projects, or being considered for other projects. Yeah.
Well, and one thing we were looking at is we're trying to, I'll say, lack of better words, absorb the extensive amount of work listed on your IMDb page. We see your credits go back to 94 on IMDb, of course. But it looks like things really took off for you around 2007. We look and we see like 5 credits posted in 2005, but 19 in 2007. Was there something that changed, a specific gig that set the rest of your career off to the path it's at now?
I don't know, I mean, yeah, if you look at it like that, it is like something must have happened. I changed teas, or somebody drank my coffee, and suddenly I was just much better. I don't know.
Changing their style?
Maybe. I got rid of the mullet, and suddenly people were, more happy to have me in the booth. I honestly don't know. I couldn't. I couldn't say. Yeah, I mean, I started in '94 because '93 was my final year of drama school, and and then I started off professionally. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's sort of the nature of this business is you go out and you meet casting directors the whole time, whether it's for VO, whether it's for on camera, and the first time you meet them, it's the start of a relationship. It's that first date. So a lot of the time, at least in my experience, they're not gonna take it to the next level, sort of thing. Maybe they, it's just getting to know you, what you can do. Okay, cool. It's nice to know who you are, sort of thing. And then over time you build it up, and then they get a sense of your range and that kind of stuff. And so sometimes it takes a little bit of time to, I don't know, reach critical mass or something. Yeah.
So you mentioned Balthier. Obviously, Fenris is a role that a lot of people know you by. What are your most memorable video game roles?
I mean, definitely those two stand out for sure.
You have so many credits, though.
It's kind of tough, and some of them, you're doing a kind of a meaty sort of role, and some of them you're doing more incidental type characters, and so there's a sort of a little bit here, a little bit there. I had a lot of fun doing Battlefield 3, where I was Blackburn, who's the player character essentially. But that was fun because it was motion capture as well as VO, and then also it ended up being likeness, so it kind of looks like me. And that was a lot of fun because the process there was kind of more like theater, it was like we had a table read first, and we talked about characters and this kind of stuff, and then when you get on the Mocap stage, it's kind of like doing theater in the round. You know, it's kind of just this blank stage, and you're surrounded by these mocap cameras, which are kind of like these sort of football-sized glowing pink rings, and they don't look like cameras at all, you know, and there's a whole bunch of them all the way around. And, you know, maybe you've got a couple of set elements where it's like a chair or a little piece of scaffolding, so that's the entrance to the doorway, so you know that you're going to hit that thing and it's going to work with the animation. But otherwise it's just blank, you know, or empty rather. So that's kind of fun because it's a whole different kind of immersive experience for the actor doing it, you know. So yeah, so that's been a lot of fun too, for sure.
Yeah, the motion capture is definitely something I wanted to ask you about. How did you get into that side of it?
I've auditioned for a couple of things over the years, and I read for a character on Call of Duty, and I did a little bit, and that was kind of my first experience doing that, and it's such an interesting thing for an actor because, you know, like I said, it's now kind of like theater in the round. So it's now, if you're coming from on camera, you're not sort of trying to favor the camera because they're all capturing at the same time. So it's not a traditional setup where, okay, we shoot a master, then we push in for coverage. Maybe it's, okay, now a two shot, and now we're going to be on you, and then we'll reverse and shoot the other actors close up, sort of thing. Whereas here they're capturing every angle at the same time. It's just data within a volume of space. So if they've got one good take, that's all they need, you know. In post, they can choose, you know, which angle to take and where the close-up's going to happen and this kind of stuff. So you need to have, first off, you've got to be really on your game because it's got to be one perfect take. And if you drop a line, you know, during a take, and, you know, you're blowing it for all the other actors as well. So it's kind of like no pressure, you know, because right. The tendency is not to intercut, at least in my experience, intercut takes, because it becomes exponentially harder for them, for the animators. So, and then also, you know, you're wearing a bodysuit, which is, you know, kind of sweaty, and it's covered in dots, and then you've got like heavy transmitter packs on your waist and stuck elsewhere. Then you've got a helmet with a camera facing you with a light shining in your face, you know, that's sort of like this. So then wherever you're, that's me pointing a light in my face for those listening. So then, but you still got to be filmic, you know, vocally, because that's what games demand these days. But then at the same time, physically, both in your body and facially, you know, there needs to be some movement. There's got to be some life there. So whereas, you know, a film actor, you know, the tendency is to kind of keep it very still and subtle. You know, still and subtle doesn't work in animation because the animation dies. So you've got to be sort of doing this sort of, you know, patting your head and rubbing your tummy at the same time thing. You know, keeping the face busy and expressive, but keeping the, you know, the delivery very filmic sort of thing. So that's kind of funny for me because, you know, after spending 4 years at drama school learning to play to the back of a theater and then trying to unlearn that, you know, when I started working on camera, it's sort of like Pandora's box. I'm always scared that when I leave a mocap gig, I'm going to be terrible at my next on-camera audition. You know, I'm just going to be so over the top.
Is it tougher to do mocap, especially because they're, you know, it's a big blank space and you're kind of imagining everything that's going on around you?
It's more tiring, I think, because you're not just doing VO. You know, first off, you've got to be off book. Because they only need one perfect take and they can choose whatever angle in post, you're covering far more per day than you would be in a traditional on-camera gig where you've got to wait for the camera to, you know, turn around, you know, or change set or move locations and stuff. You don't have any of those delays or challenges. So, you know, you can be blowing through 15, 20 pages a day. And if your character happens to talk a lot, which mine tend to thus far, it's, you know, there's a lot of dialogue you've got to learn and be good with, and you know, that coupled with the strangeness of the suits and that kind of stuff. It's definitely a challenge. It's good fun, but it does demand more of the actor than a traditional just, standing behind the mic VO session for sure.
Is the mocap side something you're pursuing more of in the future as far as video games?
I don't know if I'm pursuing it per se. It's when opportunities present themselves, I go along and I audition for stuff, and a couple of times I've been brought in for something, and I view it as sort of part and parcel of the video game world. So where I do like the fact that there seems to be a shift, at least since I've been doing games, to get the VO artists or VO actors, artist is a bit of a lofty word, get the VO actors to do the mocap as well, as opposed to keeping them separate, because then it's, there's a nice sort of continuity there. And plus, you're for the most part, they're getting VO at the same time. You might have to do some pickups, but yeah, it's fun.
To go back to the VO stuff specifically, you mentioned kind of doing the smaller roles, like additional voices kind of things. I imagine that's mostly like yelling about grenades and telling people where the enemies are coming from. Do you find that to be more difficult or different than, say, a meteor role that's more of a character?
It's just more taxing, if you're doing those military type games, it's, there can be a lot of shouting. And if it is one of those, some directors are very understanding and will let you just do like a couple takes on those shouted lines. And especially if you've got like 10, 15 pages of, screen dialogue, and they want it filmic. You can't just sort of do it like a stage shout. You're really yelling. So you can blow your voice. You can be done for. You can really blow it out if you're not careful. So they're more taxing vocally. Definitely, it's more interesting to do a role where there is some depth and there is some story. And I've always been more fond of the cut scenes. Because there's narrative involved. So, I mean, obviously you can have those in a battle game like there was in Battlefield 3. And obviously they have them in Call of Duty too. But, I mean, where I get to inject a little bit of personality, that's definitely more fun. It's just more interesting for the actor, I think.
Is it fun, though, to do the sort of where you get to go in and just do, like, death sounds? I suppose it's fun in the beginning. There are some directors who'll give you some really creatively visual descriptions of specific deaths, and it may not be that you're going to die that way, but Chris Zimmerman, for example, who I've worked with on God of War, she'll give some really gorgeous ones, like sort of pliers to the Achilles tendon, stuff like that. You're like, ooh, okay, that's something I can really, because that'll generate something new from me rather than just okay, you're being shot, you're being hurt, kind of thing, So right. That definitely helps me, Yeah. Riffing on that, we've heard that a lot of actors have some weird instances where they've been asked to do some strange things for voice for video games. What's the weirdest thing you've ever been asked to do? I mean, unless it's the Achilles tendon thing, that's pretty gross.
It is pretty gross. What is the weirdest thing I've ever had to do? I don't know if I've had particularly weird things. I know this is now a real flashback though, but one of the first voices I ever had to do as an actor back in South Africa, when I really, probably the second or third VO I'd ever done was a guy falling off a waterfall or over a waterfall, whatever one does. And it was just that sort of screaming kind of thing. And I remember thinking, like, how bizarre is that? And then I think I did a voice. Then they brought me back for like a voice in a trunk of a car. I had to pause there because I was going to say in a boot, a car boot, but you don't say boot, you say trunk. And I've learned these things. There's a couple of things I have picked up. So I don't know if that's particularly weird. Yeah, maybe the death ones are kind of the weirdest because they can be so specifically grim, and especially when it's those sort of like those throat ones where he's like, kind of things where they really want to hear like that wet gurgle, which is, yeah, it's a little bit funny, but it all adds to the final thing because I mean they're so scarily cinematic these days. Games, it is quite something. And if I think, of asteroids and games that I started off playing, when I was a kid, I used to cycle down the road on my BMX, and it's a little sort of like corner store, and I'd go and I'd sort of pop in my coins in the machine, and and I'd play asteroids forever, man, forever. I thought I was a champ. I played Pac-Man in a competition once. My dad entered me, and I had no idea he'd done this. And I think if he'd told me ahead of time, I could have put in some serious practice. I think I got to like the final 3 or something, and then I was eliminated. I wonder what the prize was for that. I don't know.
TV
yeah, it's worth Googling. That's amazing.
Yeah, but I was like 9 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
Well, playing off that, given that you're in so many video games, do you ever play video games? Do you ever see what your voice sounds like and actually like experience it from the other side?
Rarely, because I'm not a great gamer. I'm kind of old school. I like my first-person shooter, so I can point and kill things and blow things up and stuff. As much as I enjoy the acting out of narrative, I'm not so patient to sort of sit through those things myself, and that's a terrible admission. I also don't. I mean, sometimes I don't have the skill to get to my character. I mean, I worked on GoldenEye Rogue Agent, I think it was called. And then I remember seeing that misspelled somewhere. It was like Rouge Agent. Him wearing makeup. I like sort of stopping, like, hold on a second, and sort of applying some lip gloss. All right, you can attack me now. And I was like Blofeld. Well, they called him number 1, but it was Blofeld in that game, and I was so thrilled that I got to play like this iconic character, and I've got it. So I borrowed a friend of mine's PlayStation, and I was playing the thing, but I couldn't save. I didn't have like a memory card or whatever, so I couldn't save the game. So I had to just keep playing, to get through. And it was one of those games where everyone's attacking you, and you got to like kill so many things, and you get through the one thing, and then the bigger monster comes, and then those plane thingies are coming over, and it took me hours to finally get to my character. And then of course, because there are various lines you deliver that can come at different stages, and if you do this, then he spits out this line. If you do that, maybe he calls out another one, sort of thing. So I only got to hear a couple lines, but it was the most exhausting exercise ever to play through, to finally hear me. And then Dragon Age 2, I downloaded the demo, and I was playing away. I played forever on that demo, man, running around and like killing people, and then the other characters were coming over and stuff. I never got to Fenris, and I remember like lamenting that, and then somebody told me that Fenris wasn't in the demo. So it was all for naught. So yeah, I really, and also as well, I mean, if I had to, it's rare that you get a game, a copy. So, I mean, if I had to buy all the games I've done to play them, I mean, it would be quite an investment. Right. And in addition to that, I don't know at any stage where my character's going to come. I mean, in the recording, obviously, this is where we're thinking, and we're on this universe, and blah, 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 and this happens, and this is the final showdown, and you're, XXX, and you do the thing. But, in the actual playing of it, maybe it's 8 hours of playthrough before you get to, you know, to unlock that. Of course, for a skilled gamer, it's probably 25 minutes. But for me, it would be the best part of a week, I should think, yeah.
So, given that you maybe haven't seen a lot of your roles in action, is it weird when people come up and they're like, "You're Fenris and we love you"? Like, is that strange? Is there a weird disconnect there?
You know, I don't have people running up to me. I mean, I went to London Comic-Con a year ago or so, and obviously that did happen there. And you know, people are dressed up as a character, and I mean, that was kind of a crazy cool experience. Yeah, because then you really start to grasp how popular these characters are, and I know they are. I mean, you know, I sort of pop onto forums here and there and stuff, and you know, and people send me stuff, and you know, I see on the social networks the response to certain characters, but yeah, for the most part, I am kind of anonymous, and yeah, I don't know how I would deal with people running up to me the whole time. I'm quite comfortable. I don't know how people deal with that sort of thing. But it is funny that when you know, it happens once in a while where someone's like, "What? Did you know that? Oh my god!" So that sounded like that person was drunk. They must have been mistaken. They thought I was Dennis Leary. I went to this is apropos nothing. Well, it's looking like people. The first time I went to a Starbucks here, or one of the first times, this is a silly story, but anyway, I'll share it. And I go to, so I'm looking at the coffees, and there's like such a wide array of coffees, and you know, I just kind of want a coffee, and so I'll just have a coffee, and anyway, so I order my coffee, and I'm waiting for my coffee, and then the guy's looking at me as I'm paying, and he says, "Are you him?" I'm like, I'm sorry? Are you him? I was like, I'm sorry, man. I don't know what, who? What are you talking about? Are you Bryan Adams? I was like, no, I'm not Bryan Adams. Bryan Adams is like 15, 20 years older than me, buddy. You know, it was a little bit funny. That was my first in LA. My first experience is people almost running up to me. But he was in this sort of starstruck thing, and it's like I'm really not him. And then I was thinking, like, I need to get a night cream or something, because you know, it's very silly. It's very silly. And also for a voice artist, I do mumble. I do know this. I think I'm a little more articulate during this because I know it's an interview. But for the most part, I can mumble a little bit. And I ordered a coffee at another coffee shop. I don't know, probably not much longer after that, because I remember it was in the first couple months I was in the country. And, you know, they're like, "Okay, name." And I was like, "Gideon." Like, I'm sorry? Gideon? So he writes the thing down on the cup, whatever. Coffee comes out the other side, and it said "idiot." And I remember looking at that going like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" You know, and then there's that beat where you kind of look at the cup, and then you look at the barista, and it's like, are we gonna have to take this outside, sort of thing, you know? and then I was like, it was unfathomable that he could have been, you know, messing with me. But it was like, could you have misinterpreted my name so badly that as to write that? And if you thought I said my name was Idiot, wouldn't you deliberately misspell it so as not to offend me? I don't know.
That's what I would. Just to make up a new name.
Yeah. It's rarely spelt correctly, and I went through a phase where I was like, okay, stuff it, because there'd be like idiom, or there'd be Gideon or something with sort of a double D and stuff, and it's like, I don't know, it's not an outlandish name. I mean, I've definitely heard more difficult names. I mean, it's it's 3 syllables. It's I don't know. But I started, I just go like Bob or Jeff or I don't know, just some monosyllabic. And now I say Gid because now it's just 1 syllable and it's easy, so.
If we could go back and talk about Fenris, because I think we've taken...
And then I pick up your coffee, Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And that's a problem, you see. I'm going like, there's not enough. Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine. But yeah, I mean, we've kind of beaten around the Fenris bush for a while here, and I think our listeners are probably going to be a little bit mad. But we were talking to David Gator from Dragon Age 2, and he said that it's very rare that a writer will actually get the actor they have in mind while writing a character for a game. But for the role of Fenris, that was one of those rare moments, and he actually got you, who's the person you were the person he was thinking of. Can you tell us about how you got connected to that role?
I don't recall knowing that I was, like a special request, if you will. I'm completely flattered by that. I mean, I'm just sort of trying to think back now because it's, it's a. I mean, in my head, I auditioned for everything, so yeah, I couldn't tell you specifically. I imagine that I did read something at some stage, and then they called me in. But yeah, details beyond that, I can't. Honestly, couldn't tell you.
Sure, fair enough.
It's because I'm drinking Jeff's coffee.
Damn you!
I'm sorry, man.
I wonder why my cup said idiot. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, can you sort of talk about your approach to that character, to Fenris, as you were, I guess, preparing for it and then actually in the booth?
I mean, what's interesting with video game roles is that you don't have a lot of prep time. You really don't. Like I said, I mean, for the most part, you audition for a role, and 90% of the stuff I audition for, 95% really, if I break it down, would be, I lay something down at home and I email it off. And I'm just working with specs that, maybe they've sent me a, like a little short 3-line bio. There might be a page of backstory and character description. Sometimes it might just be, like a line or 2 sort of thing. And then you do that, you send it off and you kind of forget about it. And then if you book the gig, you book the gig. Once in a while, there's a callback where then there's some redirect. But for the most part, that's it. You sort of take a stab in the dark. They may have some, nice to be like a flavor of so-and-so meets so-and-so or something like that. But otherwise, you're just kind of giving your own spin on the thing and hoping that they bite kind of thing. So, I don't recall having a lot of, prep time for Fenris, to be honest. Certainly we spent time talking about him, before we started. And I think what was interesting with Fenris was the fact that there's this kind of darkness, there's that, there's some weight to him, and I think that's something you don't often have because, a lot of characters are, they're sort of your typical heroes and they're just, he's got baggage, and, and there's a little bit of bitterness which can come out kind of thing, and you can sort of like have a drink and just be like, and throw the odd sort of tantrum as well, so I think that's kind of nice. I found that Fenris was probably the most tormented, I suppose, deep down character I've had to voice, and it was, I guess I approached it became a little more a more layered kind of role where I got to go some places emotionally in a VO role, which I definitely hadn't up until that point. Yeah.
Something we've heard from other actors is that sometimes the writers and producers, as they're kind of giving you stuff and getting your recordings back, will alter dialogue sort of based on how you are, what you're bringing to the character. Is that something that happened much during Dragon Age 2, or did they kind of nail it since they had you in mind?
I mean, I'm not aware of that. If they did, it was seamless and I mean, I loved how he was written. It was a delight to play him. You don't often have that caliber of dialogue, and also where it becomes intelligently self-reflexive and so yeah, I wasn't. That's kind of news to me if that is the case. But I mean, it was. I think the writing, felt effortless when I got to deliver it, sort of thing. So maybe that, exactly. That's testimony to the fact that of the caliber of writing. So
something that we imagine has probably got to be difficult is working in sort of those fantasy worlds like Dragon Age, and especially because as you were saying, you only get so much backstory or sort of context for what you're reading. Is it tough working through those weird things that come up in dialogue, like lore or weird concepts? I
mean, here and there, absolutely. I'll have to ask, no question, because the designers, they really know. Obviously, they've created this thing, so and a lot of these things, it can be quite complicated. I mean, I'll on more than one occasion, I've sort of delivered a line, and then and then maybe one of the creators has gone, well, yeah, because what happened is because that's the thing, and it's like, okay, I totally misinterpreted that, did not understand that at all. But I mean, definitely when you're working, I think the guys, the team that you're working with, they will be at pains to explain as best they can, how the universe or the world works, because it is. I mean, it is a complicated thing, and especially, I may be only working on one little section of this universe, a character who's never going to interact with those other ones at all, and there's its whole complicated socio-political structure, and there's a lot of stuff which I'll never fully understand, but absolutely, there's explanation, and they'll definitely answer questions. I try not to ask too many questions because I realize I may come across as not the brightest.
I don't know. It gets confusing. I wouldn't blame you. I half the time playing games we don't know what is going on. So yeah, with all your work with BioWare, there's something we just have to ask you. Can you tell us, will Fenris be back in Dragon Age 3?
I can't tell you because I don't know. I certainly hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. So do we.
Hey, we've been lobbying for it from Gator too. So.
Right. Yeah. I'm the wrong. I'll be the last person to know.
Right.
But which is probably just as well. Yeah. I mean, it'd be fun. It would be fun to revisit him for sure.
Well, let's shift gears and talk about your on-camera stuff, because you've been in, a huge number of roles. Also, some of my favorites are Burn Notice and Castle, and as you mentioned, you're on Teen Wolf. Do you have a favorite role of the on-camera stuff that you've been doing?
That's a good question. I found myself, at least in LA, being brought in mainly for the bad guy, or the creepy bad guy, or the creepy foreign bad guy.
It's the British accent, yeah.
Yeah, but I really get to use it,
Right.
Like, so I'm sort of the kind of doing, like, I think casting here thinks that I look a little Eastern European, so I get brought in for those kind of thingies. But do I have a favorite? I don't know if I have a favorite, really. I'm just happy to be playing. I'm having a lot of fun doing Teen Wolf right now, because he's an intelligent bad guy. He's not just a hothead, who just goes and blows people away kind of thing. If he's going to do something, he'll have a nice eloquent speech before before he pokes your eyes out, sort of thing. So that's a lot of fun. I think like I was saying, I mean, when characters are sort of intelligently written, and when there's some nice dialogue to chew, it's a little bit fun. And because I do enjoy voice work, I do enjoy I enjoy speaking, I guess, so yeah, I'm enjoying what I'm doing now. You mentioned Burn Notice. I had fun doing Burn Notice. He was meant to be such a hothead. I was they're like, no, he's got to be more angry. I was like, I don't know, he seems pretty angry already. But that was fun. I was always hoping he'd make a reappearance, seeing as he was family. But it was a rare on-camera role where they didn't actually kill me, because I have been killed off more often than not. And but then in this case they sent me back to Ireland, so it wasn't like I was just sort of chilling on the beach in Miami, and then they could call me in to help out with the situation, I think. So I was secreted away.
Which role would you say has been most fun to play? If that's different enough,
I enjoyed
your favorite role.
I enjoyed Primeval. It sort of came and went very quickly. I was this herpetologist, or there's a big chopper coming over. I say looking as if I can see through the ceiling and the wall into the sky directly where it is, but it's not a chopper, it's a plane. Who cares what it is, people? Move along. Answer the question. Primeval was fun because he's this kind of croc expert, and he thinks he knows what he's doing. He thinks he would aspire to be of the caliber of the croc guy who, bless me, I forget his name now.
Steve Irwin.
Steve Irwin. We got a lot of flack, man, because, or at least I saw some flack online. So we shoot the film in 2005 or something, and then it comes out in 2006. It's like it comes out 8 months later. Now, during the 8 months of post-production, Steve Irwin passes away. And then when the thing comes out, they're like, oh, Steve Irwin, whoa, in such poor taste, to have this character in the movie. It's like, okay, you understand that, they don't film the movie and then it comes out the week after they film it, It takes a period of time. Secondly, I'm doing a British accent, not an Australian accent, but I know a lot of people can't, distinguish between the two. And thirdly, I was nowhere near as cool as Steve Irwin, let's be honest. But he was fun to play because I also got to hold a real crocodile briefly. So that was fun. I didn't get eaten. Although they did have floods in South Africa, not near where we filmed, but there was a crocodile park recently I was reading that they had serious flooding and they had to actually open the pens. Otherwise, everything would have been destroyed and the creatures would have, been killed and stuff. But what happened was hundreds of crocs got out into the surrounding areas, and they were sort of trying to round them up again. I don't know if that was perhaps the best solution, but that might have been a better movie, actually. But I did have fun doing that. Yeah, and then I got to work with Jürgen Prochnow, who's, you know, such a classy actor. So, yeah.
Obviously, with working quite a bit, we'll dance around the term full-time. But with your, we'll say...
Say full-time. We're going to manifest that.
You're working full-time, and everyone listening needs to know they need to start just giving you gigs because you don't have time to audition anymore.
Right, exactly.
But with your limited...
Ooh, no, wait. I have to interrupt. Something comes to me. The difficulty is you getting a hold of it, though. But I did a short called Survivor Type, based on the Stephen King short story.
Yeah, I watched a trailer on that actually this morning.
Okay. I must get you.
That was the question I was going to go with actually next.
Okay then.
It looks like you were. Well, it looks like from what I saw on the clip that I'm going to watch later that like your character essentially starts losing his mind completely.
Absolutely.
How much fun is that as an actor? Just going back to your stand-up, going back to your stage, taking all this and just basically saying, "Go crazy."
Yeah, it's a gift. It's a gift, and I think. Yeah, you were talking about favorite roles and stuff, and I'm sort of trying to think of sort of high-profile projects and that kind of thing. But it's that was really, really, really cool because it's 31 minutes, the short, and I'm on screen for maybe 29 of those 31 minutes, and it's just me, and it's and I've never had that before, and. I don't mean that in an egotistical way. I mean that in a like, wow, okay, I've got to somehow sustain this and not bore people kind of thing. But it's such an intense story, but it's a dark, has its dark humor in it at the same time because Stephen King's genius at that. That I guess that probably has been the most fun role to date because it runs the whole gamut of emotion. There's comedy, there's very lighthearted, there's just this intense, there's angry, there's frustration, there's absolute despair, and agony and pain, and because he just goes there. I mean, you've got a guy who's the sole survivor of this shipwreck, this ship disaster, and no help's coming. He realizes no one is gonna freaking come, and there's nothing to sustain him on that island, and his only solution is basically to start cannibalizing himself. So it's freaky, and what's crazy cool with with Bill Hanson's direction and his screenplay is that we see it all, and it's unrelenting. It is unrelenting, and it's quite disturbing. And I've certainly seen some disturbing thingies. And Train, which I worked on, a movie with Thora Birch, was that's pretty disturbing. That I thought that kind of went further than Hostel, and Hostel was pretty freaking gory. And this is already a few years ago, but this, it's like there is no cutaway,
right?
Because it's like I was going to say travel journal, but it's not. It's a recovered footage, found footage genre film. But it's him just chatting and stuff, and then he just talks you through the whole thing, and it's brutal and it's fantastic, and all I can say is I hope as many people see that as possible, because I think it's a great project. I'm very proud of it, and I know Bill is too. So. Yeah, look out for it at festivals and stuff, but I'll get a copy to you.
Yeah, we'll definitely. We're gonna post the trailer down below in the text window here. But even just from the trailer, it sets the tone. You could even watch the trailer without sound and just get the intensity by your expressions. And I love in the trailer one of the last. I think it might be the last cut where you're just looking at the camera and you have the knife going right to your arm.
Yeah.
And that is just one of the most intense moments on any film I've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, I so wish I could have like a release, but it can't, yeah, I mean that's fun. That's fun for me because, it's a short. It can't be sold, but it's so fulfilling for me as an actor to get something like that to really sink your teeth into, So yeah, what a treat! What a treat!
Yeah, it looks like great work. We're definitely for something. Yeah, it's very dark.
Another project I can't give my mother.
Yet another.
My dad watches everything. My mom's like, nah, I'm not gonna. She's like, send me that thing. It's like, yeah, but mom, he cuts off. Oh no, then I won't watch it. This is one where I get shot in the. Oh, okay, no, that's not. No.
With your, we'll say, limited free time, what do you do when you're not working?
No, okay. No, I go to gym. That's my kind of my moving meditation. I do also meditate. I like drawing. I've always been fond of drawing and sketches and that kind of stuff, and I really need to make more time to do that because I really do enjoy it. I write as well. I sort of have a couple stories I'm working on at the moment. One of them is kind of how do I describe it? Kind of a sort of a almost like an evolutionary, dark, comedic almost tale, which I'd love to sort of develop into something, develop into a feature and shoot. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, and then I hang with the missus, and we have a couple of dogs who've been really, really quiet, remarkably. As I say that, they'll probably come in and start savaging things. The puppy destroyed a pair of boots last night, which is great, and a jacket last week. But
good times.
Yeah, good times.
Well, coming from obviously this dark short that's coming out, on the complete polar opposite, you have a jazz album out on iTunes.
There's a little, incongruous. I had basically the jazz album is like, there's standards, and that was kind of born out of this one-man show I did called The Great Glendini, and the show was peppered with these jazz standards, which kind of marked, where he was during the course of the narrative. So I thought, hey, let's record an album. I had some fun doing it. The musicians were fabulous. I think the vocals are okay. But it was kind of, it was fun to do. It was fun to do. Yeah. I keep threatening to do what I would really love to do is an a cappella album, but I want to multi-track everything. And I've been talking about it for like a decade, and I just haven't done it. I have like one or two tracks, but one of them's on that album. I just like a little short, My Funny Valentine a cappella, but I've got another couple. Yeah, this would be fun to do. I like singing. Don't often get the opportunity to. I've had the opportunity to sing a couple times on games, actually. What was it? On one of the Assassin's Creed games, I did a jester type some singing, and I had to kind of sing something, and of course I have to create a melody like on the spot, so I did that for some character. I think there's something on YouTube with me singing. Somebody found something, and I'd forgotten, because I just sort of came up with something on the spot. That was kind of fun. And then I was like some singing court jester for some other game. And also I had to kind of come up with some sort of medieval melody. It's like, I don't know what medieval music sounds like. It's like, very silly. Yeah.
That's funny. Well, I think we're at that time in the interview. We have this section we call turbo questions. Basically, it's short questions, extremely short answers, usually 1-2 words. We will fly through these, and it's first thing that comes to your mind.
Man. Yeah. Oh dear. This I really should have prepped, shouldn't I? Okay, here we go. Let's see what we can do.
All right, so
I'm so nervous now. I'm nervous. I don't want to give a wrong answer. I don't want to fail the test.
These are actually pretty easy.
Let's say that 33 out of 10's a pass, shall we?
I'm going to hold up a picture and you tell me what you see. It's basically
Rorschach. Okay, cool. I've never done that, by the way. That would be interesting. I wonder if someone would have share some insights. Maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe it just would be bleak and dark and horrible.
They're telling you you're dark, you're insane, but you like jazz and.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's jump into this. Start off with an easy one.
Yeah.
If you could play any character in any medium, what character would it be?
James Bond. Sorry. It's always been James Bond. I'm never going to be him. So there we are. Done.
Do you prefer playing the hero or the villain?
Villain.
Favorite voice actor or actress?
Tim Curry.
Favorite on-screen actor or actress?
Gary Oldman.
What actor or actress in voice or on-screen would you most like to work with?
I mean, I want to work with Gary Oldman. I know I've said that already. Maybe Tony Collette.
I think both answers are wonderful.
Yeah, definitely.
A little off topic. Favorite restaurant in LA?
Tinto's.
I haven't been there.
Yeah, me neither.
If you weren't an actor, what would you be?
Depressed. Graphic designer, maybe.
And that's it for the turbo questions. You survived. Congratulations.
That was the slowest turbo response.
Turbo. Right? That's okay. I'll cut together.
They were good, though. They were good answers.
They're great answers. And to wrap up, for fans who want to see or hear more from you, what do you have coming up that we can look out for?
Well, first up, definitely Teen Wolf. I'm kind of the main bad guy this new season. There's a lot of fun, juicy stuff there, and I think for reasons that will remain unknown, fans of Fenris may enjoy my character Duke Alien. But that's a while till that comes out. That's June 3rd, I think, is a premiere.
Excellent.
Of the new season. Also, definitely look out for Survivor Type on the festival circuit. I want to keep hunting that because I think it's great, and not enough people have seen it, and I think people should because I think it's great stuff. We have what else? There's well, this depends when this comes out, but I know Assess. Hold on 1 second. Now I have to cheat because when's it coming out? God of War Ascension. Can listen out for my return on that.
Nice.
That comes out next week, I think.
Right. I actually have a copy right now. Today.
Well, there you are. And then otherwise, I mean, it's games that I can't talk about, which is
right.
It's quite frustrating. One particular game I've had a lot of fun doing motion capture and VO for it, but I can't mention what it is, so that doesn't really help anyone at all. Wildly different from Sergeant Blackburn in Battlefield 3. I'll say that.
We're excited.
From a different part of the world and quite a different personality. So that'll be kind of interesting.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we'll definitely keep an eye out, and when this interview posts, we'll post all the upcoming links that we can get our hands on below, including Survivor Type, which I encourage everyone to take a look at. It's like a Survivor Man meets insanity. It's brilliant.
Oh, thanks. Oh, and then also, Last Resort was a great show, that series that unfortunately didn't get picked up for a second season. I'm hoping that'll come out on DVD pretty soon, and people are interested, they should get their hands on that too, because it was a killer cast, and it was beautifully shot, and I get to play more a kind of a almost a good guy on that. The closest I've come to playing a good guy, I think, in all the sort of traditional Hollywood movie sense, where it's like, a bit of an action man.
Excellent.
Yeah. Get to see a couple of cool fight scenes as well.
Do you win?
No. But one day I'll be standing over the body going, yeah! like in what's it, Predator? When he's like ripped the skull with the spine still attached, and he's like hoisting it above his head, going, and then they've got like sort of lightning going.
Well, maybe when they cast you as the next James Bond, you'll get that chance.
No, I'm happy being. I realize the truth of the matter is I'm more likely to play villain. But yeah, deep down I've always wanted to be Bond, but it's never ever going to happen. I thought Javier Bardem did a great job in the most recent Bond movie as the bad guy. I thought it was like such a return to old school Bond villain, and he seems to have got like a bit of flack from that. Did you see that?
Yeah, it was a nice turn from just the standard action explosion, just the Michael Bay-esque type of film. It was very story driven, which I think was a nice turn, and I think a lot of people loved it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Hey, but I'm not the reviewer. Phil's the reviewer over here.
But that's okay. He didn't enjoy it. That's fine.
No, I actually didn't get a chance to see it, so I'm just being quiet in this corner. No, it was kind of a juicy, meaty. I've kind of missed those kind of bad guys. It's nice where you have characters which kind of go there a little bit, kind of thing. I think sometimes we sort of go through phases. I think like in the 80s, it was like sort of everything was big and huge and kind of over the top sort of thing, including the heroes. And then everything's kind of been sort of restrained, and even our villains have become very sort of restrained. So it's nice when someone kind of does something juicy. Right.
Nice. Well, Gideon, thank you so much for joining us in the workshop today.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, it was fascinating to hear your background, your point of view, and we're definitely excited about the work you have done, and obviously the stuff coming up in the future.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been good fun to reminisce. You've made me dust off some cobwebs in my brain and trying to remember things I've done, and one or two things I wish I'd forgotten. Last time.
Well, you're definitely a friend of the group, and anytime you want to come on and promote any upcoming work, we would love to have you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah, and if people want to check me out, they can always find me on Twitter. I tend to muse on a few times a day. So if people are bored, they can always click on there and see what's happening. Yeah.
And what's the address?
Yeah, what's that?
I'm just Gideon Emery. That's the handle.
So it's not Idiot Emery?
It's not Idiot Emery. No.
Noted.
Idiot Emery only has 2 followers. I just stopped posting there because it was like, why? I was getting a lot of hate mail. A lot of direct messages. People going like, "You're such an idiot. You're an idiot." I was an idiot today. Why did you do this to me? And that kind of thing. I have a really good friend called Karma, and that is her name. That is her given name. But she gets messages being like, "Oh, why don't you do that, man? You just did this and you did that," and it's like, wait a minute. You're talking about like karma as like, okay, like energetically things that I've done, and now it's coming back to bite me in the ass. It's not me. I'm actually a real person. So maybe you should take that anger and direct it somewhere more healthy. I don't know. Yeah, I was gonna do my impersonation of who was doing. I watched the Fenris cornflake thing. What was it?
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna do my impersonation of his impersonation of me. I have seen powerful mages, spirits, and abominations, but you are none of those things. What are you? You see a great deal. But can you see why kids love Cinnamon Toast Crunch? So I was like, back to the wilds, which is like, did he speak like that? I don't recall speaking quite like that. It's very funny though. It is very, very funny.